Absent last week when we went over the postcard activity assignment, I wanted to show you where it is that you need to go in order to be successful with that and understand what I mean when I say that you need to incorporate quotes into your writing. So when you go into the module, you're going to go here to the bottom where it says week 7 to the postcard assignment. And it tells you to start right here. It says if you were absent, please start here first. So you need to print off or copy these notes called the quote integration notes. And it's going to pull up a paper that looks like this. And we're going to fill this out and review this together so that you can be successful for the assignment. So I'm going to show you my PowerPoint of what it is that you need to fill out. You're first going to fill out this information here of what is a quote. And then there's a couple bullet points. I think there's 4 bullet points that talk about why we quote things. Then in the last little bit, I'm going to show you the 3 different examples of how it is that you can incorporate a quote into your writing. So I'm going to show you the full sentence plus colon example, the introductory phrase plus a comma example, and then a flow or a weave into your own writing example. Okay? So let me pull up my PowerPoint and we can get started with that. Okay, so the first note you're going to want to write down is this one where it says, what is a quote? And you're just going to copy this right here where it says a quote, a quote is copied words from a text. So it's just copied words from a text. That goes in the top left box. So remember that a quote isn't just something that someone says in a text. It can be anything from our book that we're taking and putting into our own writing. So we're just copying words from a text. So why do we include quotes in writing? Well, there's a couple reasons. First is that it adds variety to our writing, meaning it makes it less boring. Okay, so it adds variety. The second reason why is because quotes actually make our writing more credible. And credible is just a fancy way of saying that people believe you when you add a quote to support what you're saying. The third reason is that it adds strength to your claim or your opinion. So whatever it is you're talking about or whatever you're arguing about, when we add a quote to support our writing, it strengthens what we're saying. Okay? The last reason is because sometimes the author just says it better. So instead of just paraphrasing what they wrote, we can just use their text. We can use what they've already written and just add it to our own writing. So sometimes the author just says it better. We can just put it in and we can drop it and we don't need to worry about it. Okay? So just once again, this right here, the copied words from a text should be in that top left corner where it says what is a quote. And then the other box on the right hand side where it says why do we quote things, we have these 4 reasons right here. Okay, and you can shorten them. You can make just quick little notes for yourself. You don't have to write the full sentence here. Okay. So you don't need to copy any of this down, but I just want to go over this with you. So when we include a quote in our writing, we can't just drop it in without ever talking about it. So that we can't do imagine like a mic drop situation. We can't do that. We have to integrate or combine what we're adding from someone else's words. We're combining it into our own writing so it becomes a better product and it becomes a combined sentence or paragraph that talks about what the author has said as well as what we have said. So it becomes better. Okay? So we can't ever have a quote just stand alone without explaining it. A lot of times teachers talk about having something called the quote sandwich. So where you explain your quote, you actually put in your quote, and then you explain it again, right? So it kind of becomes like a little sandwich there. Quotes are tools to be used to support your writing. So don't think of it as like one more thing that you have to do. Quotes actually support things, and teachers love seeing students using quotes to back up what they have to say. Okay? All right, so now we're into the second half of that page, of your note page, where it has the 3 boxes at the bottom for your examples. So right here, this is the rule, and then this bottom part where it says EX, that's the example. So I only really want you to write down the example that you see here so that you can have a reference to that in the future for your postcard assignment. So our first way that we can combine a quote into our writing is called the full sentence plus a colon. So this means that if we want to include our quote, we can explain the quote with a full sentence, and then we can use the colon, which is this right here. This is what a colon looks like. It's the two periods on top of each other. So we can use that to introduce our quote. So here's what it would look like. So my quote says, or so my example says, in order to enter the underworld, we had to make a sacrifice, colon, I slashed the lamb and ewe, letting their black blood stream into the well pit. So again, I have this colon. If I were to take this out, so let's pretend that this is just a period right here instead of a colon. If I were to take that out, my writing of this whole sentence is a complete sentence. I could just leave it like that. It's good to go. But because I want to add this quote to support what I'm saying here in my own writing, I need to have that colon because my sentence is complete. So my quote right here is explaining everything that I just said right here in my own writing. So in the end, I have this new sentence of my own writing and writing from a different author to make a better product and to make a better sentence that supports each other, okay? Here's something I want you to notice. So I have my colon right here, my quotation marks, sorry, I forgot the word for that. My quotation marks start right here and end. Notice that right here, I do not have punctuation. So if there's a period or a comma right there at the end of my quote, I'm going to move that all the way at the end after my citation to end my sentence because my citation for my quote is part of this whole sentence, okay? The only time I would leave a punctuation mark here in this little quotation mark is if it's a question mark or an exclamation point. Any other time, I'm going to move that comma or period to the very end, okay? Also notice that my MLA citation, because the Odyssey is an epic poem, I have my author's name here, so Homer, who wrote the Odyssey. I have 11 because this is the book number that I'm in, right? Period, and then the line numbers. We're not worrying about page numbers with quoting the Odyssey because there's so many page numbers, and again, this isn't a book, it's an epic poem. So I'm always going to need the book number or like the chapter number, dot or period, the line numbers, okay? So I know that I can go into book 11, lines 38 to 39 and find what it is that I just quoted, okay? All right. Second example, so this is the introductory phrase plus a comma example. And there are two examples here, and I want you to write both of them down. One of them uses the comma and one of them does not. Both of them work, but just letting you know, please write both of them down. Okay, so the introductory phrase means it's just a phrase, it's not a full sentence, and we're adding a comma to it to introduce our quotation, okay? So it says introduce quotes with a comma unless the word that follows the verb. So let's look at how it would look. So this first example, this is my author, Poland, and I'm saying Poland urges, comma, avoid food products that make health claims. And then I have my citation here. I don't need to put Poland's name here in my citation because I've already mentioned his name right here. So all I need to do, because this is a book, I'm just including the page number. If I didn't say Poland, then I would say Poland space 154, okay? So this type of integration, or this quote integration example is really popular and you're probably already a pro at it. A lot of times students will write, in the book it says, comma, and then you put your quote in. Or you might say like, Homer says, comma, right? Or Odysseus says, comma, and then you put in your quote. This is a very, very easy way, right? We just quickly introduce what we're about to quote, and then we add our quotation here. The second example right here uses the word that. Remember that this is a trigger word here. So if that comes after the verb right here, this signal verb, then I'm not going to need to use a comma, right? So let's read it. It says, Pollen reports that Americans are increasingly eating in solitude. Okay? Because I have the word that, I do not need to add a comma. All right? So if you happen to say in your own writing, like Homer says that, and then put in your quote, remember that you don't need to have a comma right here, okay? All right, moving on. The last way that you can incorporate a quote into your writing is a way called the flow or the weave. So what you're doing with this example is you're incorporating or including your quote into the context of your sentence. So both the sentence that you're writing and the quote should flow and combine into one sentence. So I'm going to read my example to you here, and I'm going to point out a couple things at the end. So here's my example. The underworld was a terrifying place full of shades in thousands, rustling in a pandemonium of whispers blown together, and I hope to never have to return there. Now, I want you to think about this. At any point, did I stop or kind of like hiccup or break up what I was saying in order to read my quote right here? I didn't. So, whereas with the last example where it says like Pollen urges, comma, right? Or the author says that, right? It kind of hiccups a little bit, but with this flow or weave example, everything kind of combines and flows together. So if I were to take off my quotation marks right here and get rid of my citation, you wouldn't even know that these words aren't my own, right? Because I've combined the quote with my own writing so well that it becomes a better new included sentence. Okay, this is the trickiest one to do. The flow or the weave is the hardest to do in general, I think. I didn't master this example until college, but I will tell you that once you get it down, you feel awesome and you feel like you can rule the world. Some people are really good at this, like just naturally. So I don't want you to like worry that this seems like really hard. Maybe give it a try and see if you can get it, right? It took, like I said, it took me a lot of practice for me to finally get this, but once you get a hang of it, it's awesome. Okay, so again, it says the underworld was a terrifying place full of, quote, shades in thousands, rustling in a pandemonium of whispers blown together, end quote, and I hope to never have to return there. So again, imagine it like a braid. Like one of the strands of my braid is my own writing, the other strand is the quote, and I'm kind of just like braiding everything together. Okay. Yes, even though I know that there are 3 strands in a braid, but just pretend it's a 2-stranded braid here. All right. So that is the end of the quote integration notes or practice that you need to do to prepare you for the assignment. Okay. Thanks, guys. Last thing, you're not turning these notes in, but I do want you to have them for you so that you can go over your notes and use them to help you with the postcard assignment. Okay? All right. Thanks, guys.